Picture this, a modern cruise ship, built with the latest stabilization technology and radar systems that can track ocean swells in real time. And yet, somewhere out on the open water, a single wave rises higher than anything on the forecast. Not from a storm, not from a hurricane, but seemingly out of nowhere. It slams into the hull, shatters a window on the bridge, and for a few terrifying seconds, a ship carrying hundreds of people is left helpless among the waves. This isn't a rare freak accident from decades ago. It has happened more than once in the last few years on some of the most advanced ships ever built. This is the story of the two ocean routes that even in 2026 remain the most unpredictable in the world: the Drake Passage and the North Atlantic, and what happens when a rogue wave meets a modern cruise ship. The Drake Passage stretches roughly 600 miles between the southern tip of South America and Antarctica, where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans collide, with nothing to slow them down. There's no landmass to break the wind or the swells here, which is exactly what makes it one of the most notoriously rough stretches of water on the planet. Ships crossing it typically depart from Ushuaia, Argentina, the southernmost city in the world, heading south toward the Antarctic Peninsula, a journey that usually takes about 2 days each way. Most cruise lines that operate here schedule crossings only during the austral summer, from October to March, and even then, roughly 3 out of every 10 crossings turn genuinely rough. On a bad day, waves can climb as high as 49 feet. Experienced captains constantly monitor incoming weather systems and will adjust course whenever possible to avoid the worst of it. And modern ships come equipped with stabilizers specifically designed to soften the ride. Some expedition lines even build extra time into their itineraries, specifically so captains have the flexibility to slow down, change heading, or wait out a system rather than push straight through it. But even the best planning can't always predict everything the Drake Passage has in store. In November 2022, the expedition ship Viking Polaris was making its way from Antarctica back toward Ushuaia when, late at night, an unusually massive wave struck the vessel without warning. The wave shattered windows on one of the ship's decks, and one American passenger tragically died after being struck by broken glass. 4 others were injured. The ship suffered only limited structural damage and was able to reach port the next day under its own power. But the incident became one of the clearest reminders that even a well-run, modern expedition ship can be caught off guard by a single wave in this part of the world. Thousands of miles north, the North Atlantic presents a different kind of danger. Rather than one narrow, notoriously rough passage, this is a vast stretch of open ocean, crossed constantly by cruise ships repositioning between Europe and North America, especially in the spring and late autumn, when ships move their seasonal itineraries between the Mediterranean and the Caribbean. The threat here comes from powerful, low-pressure systems that form when cold Arctic air collides with the last warmth of the retreating hurricane season, producing fast-moving storms with hurricane-force winds that can develop and intensify faster than long-range forecasts sometimes anticipate. In December 2023, the Norwegian-flagged cruise ship MS Maud was sailing through the North Sea, en route from Floro, Norway, toward Tilbury, England, with 266 guests and 131 crew on board. As a powerful winter storm battered the region, a rogue wave struck the vessel roughly 120 miles off the coast of Denmark, smashing windows on the ship's bridge. Seawater poured in, knocking out the ship's power and disabling her navigation system entirely. The vessel had to be towed to safety by a rescue tug, eventually reaching Bremerhaven, Germany, instead of her original destination. Remarkably, everyone on board was uninjured, but the ship was left completely powerless in open water during an active storm, entirely dependent on outside help. A separate incident further illustrates just how forceful the North Atlantic can be. Royal Caribbean's Explorer of the Seas, while on a transatlantic crossing from Barcelona, Spain to Miami, Florida, encountered both a massive wave and sustained hurricane-force winds. The combined force caused the ship to tilt noticeably to one side, sending furniture sliding and startling passengers throughout the vessel. Thanks to the ship's engineering and stabilizer systems, the tilt lasted only a short time, and the ship was able to complete her voyage with only minor injuries reported among the thousands on board. According to NOAA, a rogue wave doesn't require a hurricane to form. It typically comes unexpectedly from a direction other than the prevailing wind and swell pattern, which means a ship can be sailing through conditions that look entirely manageable when a single, disproportionately large wave rises out of the surrounding sea. Scientists explain the phenomenon through wave energy from distant, unrelated storms, combining in just the right way to create one extreme, isolated peak, even in otherwise moderate seas. This is exactly why modern cruise ships rely on more than just storm forecasts. Advanced radar systems continuously scan the sea surface, watching for the kind of coherent wave grouping that often signals a rogue wave is forming nearby, feeding that data back into routing and speed decisions in real time. Weather routing services typically update guidance every 6 hours during ocean crossings, and bridge crews can adjust heading and speed to reduce the odds of a wave striking the ship at its most vulnerable angle. Route planning itself is designed around avoiding known storm belts and rough seasonal windows whenever a voyage allows for it. Even so, rogue wave encounters remain genuinely rare events, and the odds of any individual passenger crossing paths with one are extremely low. Cruise ships built today are engineered specifically to withstand exactly this kind of extreme, isolated impact. Reinforced hulls, advanced stabilization systems, and redundant power and navigation systems that can keep a ship safe even if one system fails, as happened aboard MS Maud. Crews also train constantly for these scenarios, running regular safety drills so that if a rogue wave or sudden storm does strike, passengers can be directed calmly to muster stations and issued life vests within minutes. Naval architects also design modern hulls with reinforced bow sections and strengthened bridge windows specifically because those are the areas most likely to take a direct hit from an unexpected wave, a design lesson learned, in part, from incidents like the ones described above. None of this means these routes should be avoided altogether. Millions of people cross the Drake Passage in the North Atlantic safely every single year, and serious incidents like the ones described here remain the exception rather than the rule. What it does mean is that even in 2026, with satellite weather tracking, real-time wave radar, and some of the most sophisticated ships ever engineered, the ocean still holds surprises that no algorithm can fully predict. The difference between a frightening story passengers tell for years and a genuine tragedy often comes down to a combination of engineering, crew training, and a fair amount of luck, which is exactly why cruise lines continue investing heavily in stabilization technology, weather routing, and rigorous safety protocols for every ship that sails through these two unpredictable stretches of ocean, and why passengers on these routes are always briefed on safety procedures before the ship ever leaves port.